Hi everyone, I'm Josh and welcome to Josh Wright Piano TV. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope today's episode helps you in your piano studies. A while back, I posted a video that I was pretty excited about called the Piano Mastery Checklist. And basically I went over 7 concepts. So they were notes, rhythm, articulation, pedaling, voicing, dynamics, and rubato. And I said pretty much everything in piano can be boiled down into those concepts. And one of my students then said, well, where does tempo fall? And I guess you could put it into rhythm, but I realized I'd left off tempo. And this is a concept that I feel like if people understood, their efficiency in their practice would go way up. Tempo needs to be the 8th step, okay? And I want you to break these into 2 groups of 4 steps, okay? So the first thing that I like to do is notes, rhythm, pedal, articulation, okay? So those 4. Articulation referring to staccatos, slurs, accents, that type of thing, okay? And I like to do all of those at the same time, okay? So when you're learning, be aware of the rhythm. Don't just, I famously in my mind, I always remember my grandma saying, she taught piano her entire life, and she said, one of my students came, played note perfectly, but I couldn't even recognize the piece because the rhythm was so hideous. And I said, well, where's your rhythm? He said, oh, well, that's my assignment this week, right? So I'll always remember that. You want to do those things at the same time. Now, if you're an advanced pianist, you can do the first 7 steps all at the same time. I would still wait to incorporate tempo. But if you're not an advanced pianist, start with those 4. The next steps are voicing, bringing out your melody over your accompaniment, shaping, dynamics, phrasing, however you want to say that, louds and softs, crescendos, diminuendos, how you resolve phrases, how you ease into phrases, and then finally rubato, so the pushing and pulling of time. Those will all help to give you a graded or step-by-step method in your mind of saying, okay, is this good? Is this good? Is this good? If you can check off those 7 things, your piece is probably in pretty good shape. But a lot of students said, well, my piece still feels kind of sloppy. So I said, I need to make another video revising the Piano Mastery Checklist to include tempo and specify that is the last thing to come. So I want to give you a funny little example. If you remember one thing from today's video, it's this. You'll probably remember it because it sounds pretty mean. A monkey can do this. A monkey could do this. A monkey could do this. They could do this. They could do that. Now, getting them to string those together might be a little hard, but when you're playing something like that, everyone has a baseline tempo. The reason I bring in the monkey example is everyone that comes to me, I've maybe, not everybody, I've maybe had 5, 10 students out of the hundreds that I've taught over the last 15 years, and that were like, yeah, I'm fine with sight reading. I feel good about it. Very few come and say, I'm really good at sight reading. I wouldn't even say I'm really good at sight reading. I can sight read pretty well, but compared to a lot of my colleagues, I'm not as good as they are. They can, sight read at tempo, Beethoven sonatas or, really complex works. So anyway, if somebody said, sight read that Mozart sonata perfectly, Josh, I would be pretty intimidated. I'd say, oh man, I gotta really focus. I hope I don't miss notes. And they said, but you can choose any tempo you want. Well, there goes all the nerves, because I can take as long as I want on every note, as long as I have some semblance of rhythm. So I could take, 5 seconds per quarter note if I really needed to. Even if you are a beginner, you could probably get around the Bach minuet in G at some baseline tempo. You could figure out those notes, get ready to play them, and do not play that next note until you know exactly where your hands are. And that might even be too fast. You may have to even go slower. But once you realize that everyone has a baseline tempo, sight reading starts to be less scary. And so does polishing a piano piece. Once you have your notes, rhythm, articulation, pedal, voicing, dynamics, and phrasing, and whatever you want to refer to that as, and rubato in place, then the tempo comes in. What people usually do is they'll learn their notes and rhythm, and then they'll work on tempo. And then as they're working to get the piece faster and faster and faster, they start putting in their articulation. They start pedaling. They'll maybe start voicing. But it's like putting in these details after something has solidified. So it'd be if you were a sculptor and the clay is already starting to dry or it's completely dry, it's really hard to go back, or impossible to go back and reshape the clay once it's completely hardened. And if it's starting to harden, it becomes more brittle. You've got to be really careful to not allow there to be cracks. You need it in that most malleable stage to be shaped perfectly. And I would say the same thing goes for piano. You want to make sure all those details are put in at the beginning, and tempo is the last thing you work on. This is a really frustrating concept for students, whether it takes them a really long time to learn something or it's just a long piece. They say, well, when am I going to get to up my tempo? There's a couple solutions. You can just say, just be patient, trust me, or you can start to up your tempo on pages that already have all of those things really solidified as you start to learn other pages. Now, the title of this video, Tempo is the Great Neutralizer. What do I mean by that? Tempo, the faster your tempo gets, the more things are squished, I've noticed. At least this is the norm with almost every student, and myself included. If you have really good voicing, like your melody's up here, your accompaniments down here, and they're so separated, when you speed up that tempo, kind of does this a little bit. So if you barely have any voicing at all when you're in a slow tempo, you can almost certainly expect to have no voicing whatsoever in a fast tempo. So you need to make sure things are exaggerated and extreme and in place in slow tempos before you get into that fast tempo. So wait to speed things up. Once everything's in place, speeding things up is not that hard. So I hope today offered you some insights into how to approach your piano studies, each piece, hit those first 7 things, then add increasing tempo as the last step. If any of you have any questions, please let me know. My email is josh@joshwrightpiano.com. I'm going to list 3 links in the description below. The first one, if you haven't checked it out, it's a free webinar that I released this last April with 10 of my favorite tips. I share most of them on this channel, but a few of them I have not. I also have the dual camera angles so you can see everything that's going on really well, and more in detail explanations than I even have on this channel. So check out that free webinar. That will be linked in the description below. I'll also have 2 other paid courses if you'd like to take your piano studies even deeper. One of them is called Pro Practice. The other is called the VIP Masterclass Series. If any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. Have a great week. Good luck in your practice sessions.